everyone, and welcome to the 9th episode of Targeted Impact. I'm here with Kerstin Heuer, who is the co-founder of Nonprofit Today. She is the inventor of the program Brand for Impact for small nonprofits, and she's worked with over 500 organizations, so she has a lot of answers and a lot of knowledge to share with you guys today. So Kerstin, I'll hand it over to you to give the audience a bit of an introduction and let them know who you are.
Thank you very much for having me today. I'm Kerstin with Nonprofit Today, and we help nonprofit organizations to create sustainable brands so that they can get the support they need to create more impact. And I like to say, stop trying to please everyone. Yeah, this is, I like the poll results. It's really cool because it was a little bit of a sassy question. Because we all have a branding in place, no matter if we know it or not. And so I just wanted to know, like, get a feeling like where you're at, or maybe you notice that, you know what, this question is a little bit weird because, you know, of course, because we are out there, like, of course we are there, this is our brand. Yeah, so I think we have some really cool things today that I want to chat about, because I believe, and I would love to know like what you think about it, I believe that your brand is the most important asset that you have as an organization. And the why is because your brand is what people think about you when you are not in the room, and what they think and what they believe decides if they want to support you or if they want to become a member with your organization. So that's why this became my passion. I started out with digital marketing and graphic design, and then I came deeper and deeper, and I've been doing this for over 20 years now. And for me, like, the branding is the essence of everything that you do. It's your foundation, and that's why we have worked on how can we make branding or brand strategy more accessible for small nonprofits, and that's why we came up with the Brand to Impact program. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Kerstin. I completely agree. Branding is often overlooked, especially with small nonprofits, and that's why I was so excited to get you here today, so everyone can ask you some questions. I'd like to ask the audience to, if you have any Wild Apricot specific questions, send them to our support team, support@wildapricot.com. This is purely branding and marketing to help your organization thrive. So the first question I will pose to Kerstin, and then the rest, if you put them in the questions box, we'll filter through them, and then we can ask her some of your questions as well. So Kerstin, to begin with, why is branding so important for micro organizations?
Yeah, so I think branding is important for all organizations. Sometimes smaller organizations think, you know what, we don't have the funding, let's just get going. We have our vision, we have our mission, and that is enough. But like, when you think about what branding is, it's not just your visual design and your logo and your website and all of that. It's that too, but in the essence it's what kind of stories do other people have in mind when they think about you? There are all those little micro stories, like, and depending on what people's belief is, of course, those stories vary. They might trust you, they might not. And so when we think about branding, why it is so important, because you can carve those messages. You need to create a framework within you act in terms of messaging, which means, like, what are your board members saying about your organization? What are volunteers saying? What are your clients saying? What is the ED saying? So usually if you ask 5 different people in the same organization, they will all say different things. So now imagine like, what do clients even say and think about you if you haven't defined what you are all about? So that's why I think it's so important, like, getting these essence right is a foundation, because everything else, marketing, fundraising, builds up on that. But if you don't have, it's like, you know, when you start on when you are going on a vacation and you have your plane is on a specific course and you are not on track, you don't end where you are going. Instead of flying to Italy, you might end up in Mexico. I don't know. So basically, it's like getting the essence right, so that you can help people create those stories in their head that then really reflect what you want to communicate.
I have to agree. I work in marketing as well, obviously, and it's all about stories. That's what allows you to get new members, allows you to grow your membership base. And it also segues us into the next question of what are the ingredients of a good marketing strategy?
Yes, that is an excellent question. I think it's 3 ingredients. The first one is know your audience. You need to know, I think we have to switch perspectives, because usually we think, okay, this is what we have, and we think this is what people should be interested in. But we need to communicate in a way, and with it, I mean, we need to talk even in their language, so that they get what we want. So, and we need to know, it's all about alignment. There's a really cool book, if somebody's interested, by Martin Neumeier. It's called The Brand Flip, and it's all about alignment. So you need to align like what you want with who your clients or your audience is. And then your audience, of course, they're different. It might be, you might have seniors as an audience, you might have youth, you might have definitely not the community, but all those different micro audiences. So knowing your audience is the first step. So the second one is have an irresistible offer or service, because you don't have usually you don't have a product, you have a service, and if people invest in your cause or in your organization, it's different than buying a product. So if I buy a phone and I don't like it, I can return it. If I invest in your organization, the money is gone. So what that means, irresistible offer, you are in the business of building trust and solving problems. So what problems are you solving, and how can you communicate it so that people really want to engage with you? So know your audience, irresistible offer or service. And the third one is have your message nailed down. And with that, I mean, you have your offer, you have your audience, and then how can you communicate it? And once you have that, it doesn't really matter, because a lot of times we get hung up in what tools do we use? Like, are we going on, I don't know, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook? Are we using podcasts? Should we use newsletters? So all of those things work depending on who your audience is and what you put out there. Because if you don't connect with the right message, then people don't listen to you, no matter what tool you use. It is not relevant. So these are the 3 things that that you need: audience, offer, service, and message.
Amazing. Very practical advice, which we absolutely love on Targeted Impact. So thank you for that. Our next question is from Charlie. And Charlie asks, should a brand change after a period of time? Is it okay to reinvent yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I think we have, especially now during COVID, a lot of nonprofits that I have talked to, they felt the need of, you know what, we need to invent ourselves. I had one client, their major, also membership organizations, their major event was a live event, a conference. So that was what they were working towards to. And now, of course, they had to find a different solution. And so while the vision stayed the same, they reinvented, or in the process of reinventing, how can we communicate this, and how can we provide more values to our members? And of course, like, things change, like what trends are influencing what you do, what economic things, like what has worked in the past, like what do you see? So it needs to, like a brand, your brand is a living, I wouldn't say it's almost a person, like it's a living thing that needs to adjust over time. Absolutely.
Amazing. Now we've got one from Ethan, who said, do you have any advice on how to use branding to engage new prospects leading to memberships?
Yes. So before we started, I did up a little drawing. So like, if you think about branding and marketing, so I always like to say, because there's a mix of like what does what. So if you think about the marketing is all about attraction. So let's think about you get to know somebody, you date, and and that's the marketing part. But the branding part is really the nurturing. Like after the dating, usually what happens is you connect, you build a relationship, and you build trust. So and like these two need to work together. If you only focus on marketing, you won't get further you won't build trust, because it's like speed dating. At the end of the day, you don't even know like who did you date. And how to use branding is like really listening. I got the other question. I think it's about how can you attract new members. I would like to reframe the question: why should somebody care? Why should they care about you? Like, just think the other way around. What can you do for them? But think from their perspective. If you are in their shoes, what would you like to hear? What can you offer so that they are interested to join the membership or to engage with you, maybe become a volunteer, or buy your services? So it all depends on like the connection piece and knowing what they want. And then also, of course, you find out where are they hanging out.
I completely agree. It's all about knowing your audience. As soon as you understand their perspective and look at things from their point of view, it makes it a lot easier to brand yourself, to engage people, to get people really invested in your organization. So that's great advice, Kerstin. Thank you. Carl has asked, where would one begin in regards to social media?
What was why or when?
Where would he start? Yeah.
That's also like a very good question because there's so much overwhelm with social media. And of course, it always goes back to the audience, like where do they hang out? But really, I would start like, who do you really want to reach? Like, and do you have the time and the capacity to spend the time to really grow your presence in the one or the other channel? Like if you're connecting with youth, my daughter the other day, she said, I talked about Facebook, and she said, Facebook, is that even a thing? Do they exist anymore? So of course, she's all about like TikTok and Instagram, but so like it depends on really where are they, and from there you have to then think again, okay, what can I offer them, and do I have the time and capacity to go in that channel? I would say do rather less than more, even if you're maybe just focus on one first, build that, see how it goes, and then go to the next one, because there's so like all of those work. It depends on how much do you put in there.
I agree. I would have to say to Carl though, if you are interested in social media, you should head to places like Facebook and LinkedIn and just join groups, see what everybody else is doing. Yeah. Because obviously, like Kerstin said, all different generations are on all different platforms, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But if you are to go and see what other people are doing, join groups, advertising groups, those things are really, really great at attracting new members.
Yeah, groups are excellent if you want to find out what problems do they have, just to because you can ask questions and then see like how can we apply that to our organization and what can we offer. Yeah,
exactly. Harry has asked, if your brand is perceived as targeting baby boomers, how do you shift your brand to attract millennials? And I'm going to throw in Gen Z there as well.
Yeah. So I think that is like also like, we all are, some organizations that have like a really old membership base and they want to transition to a new one, and it's again finding out what are they interested in, trying to think from their perspective. Like one of my clients, they started a new initiative called Gen Next. And so they are holding focus groups, and they talk to younger people around like in the 20s to find out, okay, what do they want and how can they help? And it's like right now, like not right now, but it's more about we are like our world is changing, and the younger generation in specific, they are speaking up, and they are the ones that that will take over and will change the world. And so they want change. They want, even if they look for a new job, usually it's more about impact. How can I make an impact, and not just how can I get my monthly my paycheck. So again, like it's like focus group work good. Like find if you can connect with with a smaller group and really ask them what they are interested in and what their problems are. So that is a good way to start and then find out like what can your organization offer, and then maybe you can even work with them and I don't know, it could be new things like even a podcast, or try to discover new tools with technology that is out there right now.
That's great advice. Focus groups are great. I would suggest as well asking just people that you know that fall into those generational, I wouldn't even know the word, into those generations. So ask some millennials if you know them, your friends' children perhaps, or nieces, nephews, ask them. See what they're into, what would draw them to join in nonprofit organizations and associations. What is it that they're really, get to know your audience. What is it that they want and they need? Our next question, do you have any tips and tricks for communicating the organization's mission?
Yes. Something that that often is done with vision and mission is you have formulated your vision. Sometimes it's more than a sentence, and I would say there should always be a kind of an internal version and then an external that is more user-friendly and can be remembered and understood by a 6-year-old. And because it's all about like, if you want to create several, like you have your mission statement and you make it really simple so that people can understand it. I also have a formula that maybe we can share later on as a resource. So like create a mission statement that is more for the external users. And once you have that, I would create some underlying messages that go, like your mission is more like an umbrella, and then you have underlying messages that go along with this, and everything that you do can support this bigger message, so this bigger mission, so that you can, no matter where if you're in social media or you have a newsletter, you can always relate back to that mission. Like one of my clients, for example, they have like a monthly newsletter. And of course, they have stories of what people do. And you can tell a story in different ways. You can just say, like this organization, for example, they lend medical equipment, and they shared a story on how this helped. But one of their core values is, and the part of their mission is to help people stay independent and mobile. So when you talk about a story, how can you connect it to that mission and vision so that people say, oh, okay, this is how that relates. So you always need to see the relation. It's good to share good stories, but you always need to connect it back to this bigger picture so that people really get it, because you need to hear a message, I think a 7 times or more, so that you really know, okay, like this is what they do.
So another question in from our audience: how do you use your brand to move a person along the engagement curve from target audience to non-member user to member to volunteer, if your brand is different for each of these groups?
Yeah. So again, I would start with with an overall message, and then I've just been going through with one of my clients. You have to think about how can we make this message relatable to the different audiences that we have. For example, one of my clients are in crime prevention, so they help make communities safer. What does it mean for a senior? What does it mean for a youth? What does it mean for the Aboriginal community? So all those have different needs. And in terms of how do you move them down is exactly, you start with a bigger picture, and then you think about, okay, what kind of services and offers do we have that, for example, when we talk about safety for seniors, would fit in there. So the overall message would be safer communities. What does a safer community look like for a senior? And what does it look like for a youth? Or, there's cybercrime, there is bullying, but for a senior, it's maybe a telephone scam. Or, and of course the reasons are different. Seniors are lonely, and youth, they're out there, and they're on TikTok, and they have different different connection points. So how can you apply that? And then I would, as you like, there's this, it's called like customer journey. Where in the journey are they? Are they problem aware or solution aware? Like, you know, if you talk, like a lot of times we tend to talk about solutions, but people are maybe not solution aware, so they wouldn't think about you. It's like if my neck hurts and I don't know, like it's maybe a really weird term about it, and somebody, you write about it or you talk about it, I wouldn't maybe not think that this is me. But if you just talk about, oh, do you have neck problems, then I think, oh yes, and then I will read further. So the same is with that, like we tend to talk more about the already the solution and what you do instead of the symptoms. And I think that is the way to connect, and then see, okay, if they are problem aware, you create information and messages around problem awareness, and then you create also messaging about solution awareness. So, and then you can guide them further down your funnel.
I have to absolutely agree with that. All of our audience members who would have got the invite for this would have seen that in the caption for the email and the first line, we did exactly that. We asked a question that appealed to your pain points with branding and marketing, and it led you to sign up here today. So it's a perfect example of everything that Kerstin just said. One of our audience members would like you to clarify, when you say irresistible offer or service, are you referring to a compelling slogan or tagline, or what exactly is it that you're referring to?
Yeah, so with irresistible service, I mean, like what are you offering? So going back to this example with the community safety, for example, that I mentioned. So in the past, the only service or the only offer that they had, the big offer, was that conference. Now, and then of course we always think about how can we get more members to join our organization? And then thoughts come, I think, thoughts come up like we have to do a membership drive. I don't know really what a membership drive is. It's this big idea that, you know, we ask more people to you know, to join, and then they will join, which of course is not the case. So what I mean with that is create a depending on where they are in their journey, create an essential model. And what that is, and I did a little thingy here earlier. So like you can talk, you can if you see a pyramid, and at the top level you have your high offer, and at the bottom you have your freebie. So depending on where the people are that you want to attract, they probably won't join you right with your VIP offer, depending on, or you, in this case, with a conference, for example. Like, what can you offer them as a low entry point, so that they don't, to keep them interested? And once they are connected with you and get to know you, and you build trust through the things that you put out, what are the next things that you can offer them to create a more sustainable membership? So it could be maybe just a monthly membership for, and maybe it's just $10. And then the next step would be maybe they get some, I don't know, like some weekly access to monthly sessions with a speaker in a specific area. So that could be a next level. So what are those different levels that you can create? So that is an irresistible offer, and it's also irresistible because you are focusing on what do they want, and you talk in their language. So it's a lot about really messaging and reframing. Sometimes, you know, big brands, when they launch their product, sometimes it's a total flop, but not because the product is not good, but because the messaging isn't right. So having like a really good essential model, like with those different levels, what I just mentioned, and then thinking, okay, how can we frame it in a way so that people see a value? Because what you want to, because oftentimes we get stuck with benefits and features. We say you get like 10 newsletters a year, or like access to one conference. But these are just benefits and features. But what really is the transition, the transformation? What can you, because you are, in the end, you are in the problem solving business, and what can you offer to solve that problem. Like, what is the transformation that you can give, that you can offer people, that you can promise? So that's a big promise that you want to connect with this offer. If I have a problem, I don't care how I get rid of it. If my shoulder hurts and I have a headache, I don't care what how I get rid of. I just want to have it solved. I just want to be healthy again. So what is the transformation that you can offer? And then how does this transformation fit in this ascension model of your membership or your service that you offer?
Great advice, especially with pain points. You've really hit the nail on the head when you say you do just want, if you have health symptoms, you just want them gone. So if you can really find the pain points of each of the the groups you're trying to reach, they're going to be a lot more receptive.
Yeah. And also, like, most people, they see your organization, they don't invest in your organization just because it's your organization or your cause. Usually they are interested in the bigger picture, like how can you they use your organization as a vehicle. So if I want my neck shoulder pain gone, I could go to the natural path. I could go I don't know, to my family doctor. So these are all vehicles. So the vehicle doesn't really matter for me. I just want my pain gone. So the same for you. You have a vehicle and you need to solve a problem for others so that they can use your vehicle to get somewhere else. So what is that vehicle and how can you transform?
Great advice. We have a question just come in from Matthew who says, should communication techniques differ depending on the source, i.e. newsletter, social media post, or email? Do you have any live examples or helpful tools?
Can you repeat the question at the beginning?
Should communication techniques differ depending on the source? So should you communicate differently if you're sending out a newsletter compared to a specific email to promote an event or a Facebook post?
Yeah. So I think like what should be the same is your tone and your voice, and of course the visuals, and of course, like, depending on the source what you use, you can be creative. You can use visuals, you can just use words, you can use a video, and of course there are like different trends. Like video right now, like everyone knows, like reels on Instagram is really hot right now, and if you use that, you will get lots of shares and interest. So, but I think the important thing is, like, you have to define how do you want to be seen. Like, for example, what words do you use, and what do you not say? What do you use, emojis or not? Are you more like conservative, or are you more I don't know, modern and funky and sassy? Like, what is it that what is the vibe that you want to get across? And then you can think about, okay, how can I do this as in a video, in a reel, in a newsletter? What kind of pictures can I use that really show that? And so, like, I would not rather think about the essence first, and then think about how can we use that in a newsletter? How can we apply it on Instagram? I hope that does it make sense? I hope that answers the question. So I think it's about really aligning and finding out, like, who are you? And I think it doesn't really have to be complicated. I think a lot of times people make a super big deal out of the branding without knowing really what it is. But in the essence, if you can say, if you have like a personality and can communicate that with a message, and you say, okay, this is really how we want to be seen, and yeah, that is the most important, I think.
Yeah, what I'm hearing there is follow your brand guidelines to basically just make sure you've got your clear message and the tone is the same, the voice is the same, and then you can use that and align that with each platform that you want to use. So with an example with Facebook, for instance, you want to keep it sort of short and sweet. Videos do really well on Facebook. Maybe include a video that sticks to that same message. If it was a email, again, short and sweet. You want to have all the main information, but people don't have a lot of time and they don't have the attention anymore. So what you really want to do is just capture their attention straight away. And if there's an action, give it to them instantly. So there's no, if these big long emails, how many times, if you think yourself, have you seen a big email, scanned it and just, no, I'm not bothering with that. So keep it short and sweet and stick to your brand guidelines, which leads us to our last poll of, do you have any branding guidelines in place in your organization? For example, do you know what kind of messages you want to get across on social media? Yes or no for this one? While we wait for the answers to come in, just a reminder to send your questions in for Kerstin and myself. Send them into the questions box and we'll try and get round to as many as we can. We've got some really interesting results here again. These were really, really great polls, Kerstin. 70% say no, they do not have brand guidelines in place. So with that being said, I am going to say, how do small organizations, how do they build brand guidelines? Have you got any advice for that?
Yes, you start, how do you start? Like, of course, it can be, you can make it very complex or very simple. I'm usually for simple. And like the basics that you need for your social media, I would say, like, find a common, like, in terms of visual, like define like what colors do you use, what fonts do you use? That is just a visual thing, but also like what kind of information are you sharing, and then what kind of language do you use? What's the tone that you want to use? Because if you are like other nonprofits, there's just more than one person working on social media, and you want to make sure that you sound the same, no matter who is posting something. And how do you start? I would say, like, of course you need your vision. You need to know where you want to go, and you need your values. And because from your values, everything, and your belief, everything draws down. Like, there's a really cool, I don't know if you heard about the brand archetypes. You can find out like what kind of archetype you are. Maybe you are a magician or the caregiver, and depending on that, that gives a really cool guideline on how you can communicate with your audience. And so when I develop guidelines, of course, I start with the bigger picture, because usually we start with the whole process of developing a brand. So there would be the values and the purpose, the why, and then we break this down, because depending on what kind of values, purpose, your why, that then you define your color scheme and everything in your messages. So I would say this is not something that you can do on your own. You definitely need to do that as a team, because it's your organization. It's not just, if I am just a personal brand, of course I can do it really easily. But it's also valuable to have someone that helps you with this process, because something that I always say, and it applies to everyone, you can't read your own label. You need someone else to ask you questions and to pull all those things out. Like we have gone through a branding ourselves, and we hired someone else to do it, because you just can't do it. It's really, really hard. So have someone else that to help you with it, to ask questions, and like what makes you different. Really define that. It's a longer process, but I would say that for social media, the most important is like consistent messaging, like find out what words, what emojis, what color schemes, and what kind of things you share, so that it's across all the same, no matter who shares it.
Completely agree. And this will lead us to a question from one of our audience members called Josh, who I think you may have just answered half of this question, but it's a two-parter that says, how important is it really to be consistent with things like graphics, messaging, and tone? And related to that, how would he know what the right voice and tone to use would be?
Yeah. Well, it always depends on like who is your organization. Like how do you want to be seen? Like, do you want to be seen as more like the conservative organization, or are you more like the young and modern one? So depending on where you see yourself, and of course that is something that usually, like, I see that there is there is a gap usually between like the one that does the communication, and then there is the board and the and it needs to there's usually, or oftentimes there's a gap, there is a vision, and then there is your day-to-day communication, and oftentimes people feel left alone because how can you connect, how can you be consistent with that if there is no strategy in place that connects the bigger vision and the strategic plan with your day-to-day actions. So yeah, how to find this? I would say it needs to be something that is there needs to be an executive team that oftentimes there is the board that is in the beginning part of this process, and then an executive team that develops it, and you just need to agree on some specific standards. So, and once this is done, like the person responsible for the communication and execution can work on that, but it all depends on who do you want to be seen, and that is not something usually that someone that is in a marketing or fundraising role can decide. Like, you have your own ideas of how it should be, but is this right or not? You don't know. It might be just your perception. And then, of course, also the question is, how do you want, how are you seen in the community? And what is important to reach your goal? Like, is it, if you want to attract a younger audience, of course, you want to adjust your messaging according to that, because otherwise they won't find you hip, or they're just not following you and don't want to engage.
Some great advice. Monica has asked, what are some ways then to get to know your audience? Are surveys useful? How would they really understand their audience's needs?
Yeah, so different ways that we have done in the past. Of course, you can always do a survey that you put out on social media, asking questions about like if they know your organization, what they think you do. So you can create some questions this way, but you probably won't get really qualitative good results that you can work with. It's good to get an idea. The second way that we always do in addition is do a focus group, and like have a small group of people that you want to attract and ask them. If you want to, like, oftentimes I get asked, because we do a kind of persona and avatar creation when we work on a brand, which is also part of our brand to impact program. So we focus on that, and then the question always is, are we focusing on the audience we serve right now, or on the one that we want to attract? So you want to focus on the one that you want to attract, because if you have your vision and you focus on a different audience that is not aligned with that, you of course don't get there. So we have done in the past, we have done focus group. I also have done interviews, because in the interviews you have your question and your guidelines, but you can ask more in-depth question depending on what people answer. Another good way is to look in groups, Facebook groups, for example. Where does your audience hang out? And then find out what is going on in their mind. Ask questions that way. And you can also look into, your website. You should have analytic tools set up. For Google Analytics, for example, you can see like what is the main audience, what are their interests. If you have linked it properly, you can get a lot of information out from that. So I remember I had one client, she asked me, can you give me some stats, because we are working on a fundraising campaign, and that we have someone that wants to donate money, but they want to know like who is looking at our website. So we found out that I think 60% were interested in travel. So guess what? The one that wanted to donate money was a travel agency. So for them, of course, it was really interesting to know that 60% of their audience has these interests. So different ways, like survey, focus group, interviews, groups, Google Analytics. Yeah, these are the ones that come up to mind right now that we use.
Amazing. We use all of those things too, so I second everything that you've just said there. Monica, I hope that answers your question. We now have one a little bit more specific. Stacey wants to know, she rebranded and renamed her organization 3 years ago, but the old name is still hanging around. Do you think it's important for them to pursue that, or to spend time really eliminating the old brand, or just to move forward with the new brand that's been renamed?
My question is, why is the old name still there? So like usually it's like we have rebranded a couple organizations in the past, and like what we have done is like we have on the website and all the other material we have said formerly XYZ, now ABC. So I would put that in all the communication pieces. If she has already, like, if it's already 3 years ago, then my question is, how are you present with on social media? How are you communicating your new name? Like, are you doing intentionally something to promote it? And not just the name, but the services? Or did you just change it and that was it? It's like, you know, if you have a baby and it's born and you tell nobody about it, then nobody will know. So like, have you created a campaign around this? So is there something that you can do to get this new name in people's heads, and not just with, hey, this is our new name now, but talking about the reasons, because there's usually a reason behind it. And then talk about what the new name and the new branding means. So in terms, it's like starting a conversation. I would that's something that I would suggest. And then also with every fundraising or with every campaign that you do, bring the new name and why and your key messages, combine it. So that is how I would approach it without knowing more. Like, of course, it depends on your personal case, but these are some things that I can suggest and that has worked for our clients in the past.
I completely agree, especially with the point that you made about sharing the reasons for the rebrand and the reasons for the new name. People really buy into stories. It's something we touched upon earlier, but it really works. It's tried and tested. People like stories, they like to be involved and understand why. And if you explain that, maybe that will help. Related to Stacey's question, Valerie has asked, what are some signs that it may be time to rebrand?
A typical sign, or the most common sign, is people don't understand what you do. That might be either confusing messaging or a confusing name, or like if the name is confusing, then of course it's a rebrand. We have like one client that they wanted to do a rebrand, I think 10 years ago. But they never had the funding, and now the things that they do have changed over the time. Their vision is still the same, but the perception from the community is totally different from what they do. So now they have a problem. The name doesn't reflect what they do, and also everything that that they share on their website, for example, doesn't work anymore because of the things that you know, now we have to do everything virtual, like they have to deliver programs online now, so that doesn't work. So they still don't have the funding, but now they're at a place where staff says we can't do this anymore. They have like typical signs might even be that are not so typical. You might not relate it to branding, but are you having problems finding board members? Like, do people really know or not know what you do? We have one client that is in helps homeless people to find shelter, and it's the first place for recovery, but they are known as a community in the community, not under the umbrella of recovery. So what is the perception that you have in the community, and how do you want to be seen, and how do you need to position yourself? Because sometimes it is even about attracting funding, because you might need to fit in a specific box, to say, so that you can apply for the funding. And does your organization fit in this box? maybe you do, but everything you put out there does not reflect it. So I think like messaging, like trends, and of course, like, do you feel like, how do you feel about your brand? Like I always say, it should feel like butterflies. Like you need to be excited to share what you do, and also your staff need to be excited about this. So is that the case, or is it not the case? And then why not? So there's different reasons on why to rebrand and in what, how deep. Like sometimes it's just a visual rebrand and the messaging is the same, because it's just looks outdated. But then sometimes it's just the name is really confusing, or the things that you do have changed and you change the messaging. So it's very like there's different layers, but I would say that are the most common ones.
That's great advice. Valerie, I hope that helps. That's all we've got time for, Kerstin. This hour has flown by, as it always does. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to give you the opportunity now to share some of your resources with the audience. If there's anything you'd want them to know, we can drop it into the chat box. Where they can find you, how they can contact you, all of those things.
Awesome. So yeah, it's like how you can find me. I am on LinkedIn. Just Google my name, Kerstin Heuer, or go to our website, non-profit.today. And something that you might be interested in, we have a couple of things. I mentioned our brand bio, how to create your brand bio, and it's just like a 150 not word, like it's a brief sentence that you can put in your social media, and that stays the same. It's like the key message that I mentioned. We also just start a challenge. It's a 3-day challenge on how to revamp your website. It's a free challenge that starts next week, and our goal is to help nonprofits that want to or need to see the need to relaunch their website. We help them to plan that out in 3 days. And last but not least, we are opening up our Brand to Impact program next month. And if you want to get on the wait list, I will send out some information next month about this. It's a program where we help small nonprofits to get their branding in place.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that. Thank you to our audience members. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. Kerstin, thank you for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you for having me.